Are men over 40 less confident? Why he might not commit to you? That's what we're going to dive into today, because I've heard habitually from so many women how men seem less confident that they might have been in the past. And certainly the conversation around commitment phobic men is a very prevalent conversation for a variety of different reasons. And we're going to dive into that today. You know, something occurs to me, and the reason why we're doing the over 40 category is my predominant audience, is that people in midlife, oftentimes you'll find them, most people over 45 years old who are single in the dating marketplace are most likely divorced. And certainly we have a significant percentage of people who have lost a spouse, whether it's a man or a woman. So we certainly have a different type of demographic versus those in their 20s and 30s, because people in their 20s and 30s oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes are seeking to start a family with someone, build a life, someone, have a partnership, versus those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, where we oftentimes have fully curated lives. Okay, so I just wanted to set the stage. Why I'm recording this video for a couple reasons. First is, did anyone watch The Golden Bachelorette? If you did, this is a group of people over 57 years old. There happened to be one man who was 57. Most everyone was over 60. And the bachelors, 24 of them, you know, quite frankly, they were the cream of the crop. In other words, when they put out the casting call to be on The Golden Bachelor, they didn't say the average guy. They were looking for the cream of the crop. And that might somewhat set us up for failure in the existing dating marketplace, because these men all had good jobs. They were all relatively attractive. They had their act together. They seemed relatively confident. And while many of them did share some emotional struggles that they had, particularly because there was quite a few people in the Golden series are widowed or widowers. It's a different type of energy, someone who's lost a spouse versus the average person in the dating marketplace that are divorced. And we'll talk about all the intricacies of divorce, the unraveling of the tapestry you might have had a life with someone. So I said that they're the cream of the crop. But you know what? They're not the average guy. The other day I was watching a Netflix series called Stutz, Stutz, Stutz. And it's about a therapist. It's about Jonah Hill's therapist. Jonah Hill's a relatively recognized actor. He's a little bit younger, but he did a documentary about his therapist and all the work his therapist has done to help him feel better in his life. Jonah Hill admitted very candidly all of the demons he's had in his life, particularly centered around weight and where that may have been birthed. And so it's a very touching story about the therapist that helped change his life. The reason why I'm sharing this is many of you who have followed my channel know that I'm a dating and relationship coach for women. But every once in a while, a man reaches out to me, and not surprisingly, but recently, a man reached out to me, a young man in his late 30s, okay? And he's in a relationship that's a little bit complicated, but during the course of our conversation, I recognized how emotionally wounded he is for a variety of different reasons, And he's genuinely hurting. And because he's hurting, the ground underneath him doesn't feel solid. So it makes it very difficult while he's in a relationship with someone and he cares for her deeply and she cares for him. There is some chaos going on in his life that makes it very complicated for him to fully embrace an all-in type of relationship. But there are other nuances in his relationship as well. Why I'm sharing this with you is I began peeling the onion of this gentleman during our conversation. His wounds have nothing to do with the relationship. It goes much deeper than that. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is as I was preparing for our future sessions, I went to my book. My book is called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual. All the books I recommend today are listed below. The reason why I went to my book is I went to my final thoughts in my book, my final thoughts. Because, and I'm going to share with you in a moment why. He said the reason why he wanted to hire me is he looked up to me. He's heard me share many vulnerable things publicly about my life experiences. And he said, and he looks up to me from the perspective of, you feel confident to me, Jonathan. How did you do it when you went through so much emotional despair? How did you do it? And as I started to reflect, I was reading the back cover of my book, The Final Thoughts, is, folks, I went through a divorce almost 17 years ago, okay? I had just turned 40. At that time, my wife, then wife, and I were, we had troubles. We decided that we were going to go our separate ways. At that very same time, I lost my high-end corporate job. And within a year, the market crash of 2008 and 9 financially devastated me. I got wiped out. And there was a period for several years where I went to bed wishing I didn't wake up. I mean, imagine that. I have 2 small children. There's a picture of my boys right there. And they were about that age, about the time we got divorced. I had 2 small children, and I went to bed wishing I didn't wake up. My confidence level was in the toilet. Men oftentimes associate their professional life, with their identity, and my identity, and particularly their financial and professional life, with their identity. And my identity was blown to bits during that period of time. I want you to imagine that, when we're doing well financially and career-wise, we have all this confidence, but imagine that on some level gets taken away. Does that make me any less of a human being? Does that make me any less of deserving for love? And so why I'm sharing this with you, there's a significant, just like this client of mine, and I can tell you, just like Jonah Hill, in this documentary, there's a significant percentage of men who are hurting emotionally. And because they're hurting emotionally, they are gun shy to commitment. They are gun shy to commitment. Now, I think it's very brave of this young man. And he said to me, financially, he's even struggling. He's like, I don't care, Jonathan. I want to work with you. Your story inspires me. How did you dig yourself out of the pit of despair? And as I was reflecting on my book, and I was looking at, and as I connected the dots, and I'll just share with you all publicly, it started with one book, a Louise Hay book called You Can Heal Your Life. It started actually well before this crash. It started with You Can Heal Your Life, the book by Louise Hay. By the way, all the books I recommend is under the Jonathan Recommends books. Why I'm sharing this with you is I made a conscious choice to begin a journey of healing. Now, whether you're a man or woman, I'm here to encourage deep healing for human beings. I'm here to encourage that we look at our childhood wounds and our adult traumas. We look at our childhood wounds and our adult traumas, because if we don't, then we're building a life on very shaky ground. And this gentleman recognizes that he doesn't want a life of being on a shaky ground. He wants a life of stability. And why I consistently recommend books like The Hoffman Process, The Hoffman Process. This is a deep dive into healing your childhood wounds, particularly. And as you begin to heal and work on oneself, you build emotional scaffolding. So by the time my son passed away, there's a picture of Connor right there. By the time my son passed away, I didn't go down the pit of despair because this emotional scaffolding had been built. See, most men have been taught to stuff their emotions, to stuff their feelings, to be stoic, to not really honor their feelings. And because of that, we have a significant population of men who aren't as confident as they once were when we were taught to habitually stuff our emotions and feelings. And guess what happened to those men? They oftentimes reverted to drugs and alcohol because they weren't able to navigate their emotions. Women have been encouraged to navigate their emotions, but men haven't. Now, I do believe there's a shift. I do believe there's awakening. I believe the Gen Alphas and the Gen Zs and even the millennials are more inclined to do personal development, self-help, spiritual work, or therapy to bolster their confidence. Because we are more emotionally complex now than ever before in our society. We are more emotionally complex. Most importantly is understanding and recognizing your emotions, how they affect our lives. And you see, the commitment conversation is very tricky because if the ground underneath a man doesn't feel very solid, how can he commit to another human being? Women, I believe, historically have been so, in the past, I'm not saying now, but historically have always been dependent on men. It didn't matter whether the ground underneath them was solid because they were rather dependent on men. Now that women can stand on their own 2 feet and take care of themselves financially, which is basically their own ability to provide and protect, they're not as dependent. But I believe psychologically it's been imprinted you're dependent upon men, even though you're not dependent upon men. And that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. Men aren't intentionally trying to be weak. Men aren't intentionally trying to be less confident. Men aren't intentionally not trying to commit to you. I think what needs to be addressed is the complexities of a person's life and recognizing that commitment is something you build together over time when you understand each other from an emotional perspective. But Jonathan, I'm just supposed to sit in my feminine energy and let men lead because that's what all the feminine energy coaches tell me to do. I should only choose confident men that know what they're doing. Please forgive me. I know that was kind of crass, what I just, disparaging. I'm here to draw attention to the reality of shit. You can talk about masculine and feminine energy all day long, but a human being is riddled with a variety of different emotions. And it takes oftentimes Herculean effort to understand your emotions, to decipher your emotions, to navigate your emotions, particularly the emotions that give one emotional or give one pain. Do you realize the number one emotional health wound most everybody is faced with is I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not likable? And because of that, and dating and relationships trigger that stuff like nobody's business. So what do? You're a woman who seeks a commitment. Let me just start by saying this. Be your authentic self. Be upfront. If you want serious commitment, then be radically upfront from the very beginning. Some men are just not capable of it. They're going through a crisis in their professional life. Maybe they're going through a contentious divorce. Maybe they're still married to somebody else. Do you know how many women I speak to that are actively in relationship with men who are that are still married? But Jonathan, he's so wonderful to me and the sex is so amazing and he's so wonderful to me and the sex is so amazing, but he's still married. Why do you engage in that? I'm just curious. So, what do? You have honest conversations from the very get-go, recognizing that most men and women are rather gun shy about commitment in midlife, rightfully so. If you've been hurt in the past, you might be gun shy. How do you overcome this? You hold hands together I invite you all, anytime, the next time you're in a relationship, you both read this book, 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. These are 8 essential conversations to have before you fully commit emotionally to another human being. I invite you to start doing this work for yourself. As I lose my voice. By the way, is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. Actually, if it is, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. Listen, I've said my piece. If you want to shift the narrative, then lead with what you want. Encourage reading this book together before the penis ever goes inside the vagina. Recognize that men are human beings and they are, fallible human beings. And not everybody is so stoic and confident. But that doesn't mean that they're good people, they're bad people. Most men are good guys. They're just bad daters. Is this sinking in? I want to hear your thoughts. Hey, if you found value in this video, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to follow me on Instagram, all listed below. All right, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner there. Write the word question, then post the question there after. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there, Woody. He's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, and scholarships to coaching as well, just to name a few. And our goal is $50 today, so I'd appreciate some love. All right, our first question. Would you please write the names of the 2 books? Okay. Actually, somebody write it for me. 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. Okay. And they're listed below, Sammy. And the Hoffman Process. The Hoffman Process. In the show notes, there's a link that says Jonathan recommends. You can get the books there. It's called the Hoffman Process. Can someone write that in the chat box for me? All right. Looks like we have a bashful group tonight. Oh, Melissa just wrote it down. 8 Dates is one of the books. Thank you, Melissa. And again, the Hoffman Process. Jerry says, don't want to be involved with an ex or divorce situation. I agree. It's very complicated if a person's past experience bleeds into their future experience. And Sammy just wrote Hoffman Process. Okay, Heather's in the house. When dating, do you think that men judge women based on their exes? I just learned that my son's father has been making some horrible decisions with our son this year, and we are no longer friends. Well, I don't think you need to, when dating, in the early stage of dating, I wouldn't talk about your ex-husband's or ex-spouse, behavior, because, there's 2 sides to a story, first and foremost. So I wouldn't get in the granularness of it. Now, if it's genuinely affecting your life, then I would definitely seek a therapist so you can learn how to navigate it. Because now that they're an ex, they're a free agent. They're doing, and if you need to, call an attorney or need to call a doctor or a policeman because they're doing some horrible things, I think you should go seek professional counseling if that's the case. Okay. But I wouldn't bring it up to in the dating perspective, because all it demonstrates that you're wounded and that you're dealing with trauma, and somebody else is going to be turned off by that. Not to suggest that. And the reason why I suggest you're wounded is if you're doing it from a complaining perspective and you're not working on solving the problem, then it's not beneficial to the new person. That's what I meant by that, Heather. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. RM Bell says, I'm going to be in the same town as a man I'd love to see. We usually live X country. He's told me he's too protective of himself to be friends. However, should I reach out since I'll be there? Well, he's been very upfront. I'm too protective to be friends. So he sounds like he doesn't want to be friends. So why do you need to see him? Well, I know you'd love to see him, but if he's not in the space to receive you, then what's the benefit? What's the benefit? I mean, what are you hoping to accomplish, RM? If he says he's too protective of himself to be friends, then he's basically saying, I mean, I guess he's saying, I don't want to be friends. So then what's the payoff for you to see him? And just recognize, I mean, like, if he's not capable, then why would you even want to see him, would be my question. Patricia wants to let Heather know, don't give your personal information to someone you're dating in the beginning. It can backfire on you. Well, I disagree with that, because what dating is a very personal thing. But I would be very cautious to share negative things about somebody else, because it's not a very attractive quality, especially because it comes out usually as complaining, and it usually comes out as victim consciousness. I'm not saying it is, I'm saying that's the way it's perceived. So I would highly recommend not doing things like that in the early stages. Now, that's not to suggest you don't focus on what you might be going through emotionally, but there's a difference between sharing what you feel versus criticizing or critiquing someone else's actions. That's just the way I would navigate that. Okay. And Patricia goes on to say, yes, Jonathan, you said it better. Thank you. You're very welcome. Oh, Heather goes on to say, I'm just worried that the guy I'm dating would look at me, wonder why I was ever with a guy that judged me. You look at, okay, so first off, you're projecting what you think he might be, thinking about you. And you're also, it's a reflection of your own projection of your own disappointment for being in a relationship that turned on you. Well, let me just tell you something. We have a significant percentage of human beings that are divorced or have been through relationships, and the person is not like the way they were. We think about how many millions and or hundreds of millions of people throughout history have entered into a relationship, all happy, all in love, and they end up in a contentious divorce. It's because human beings are fallible. You're just in good company. So I wouldn't beat myself up over it myself, but don't suppose how someone else is going to judge you. And by the way, if he judges you, then he's not the right person anyway. So anyway, that's just my rough thoughts on that. Okay. Hey, it looks like we have a bashful group today, so we're going to cut out a little bit early on our Q&A. I want to reiterate. Oh, all right. Well, we've got Ella here. Why men are having quick, let me repeat this. Why men are having quick an attitude when the first sex wasn't good, and don't consider it to have any further conversation, to consider both sides of the story. I think if what you're saying is, if the sex isn't good on the first go around, why would a man have attitude? That's because we oftentimes dive into sex very unconsciously, without intentionality, very ambivalently. It's not something sacred. So, does the why really matter? Like, okay, I get that this happened to you once, Ella, but are you worried that this is going to happen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? I mean, I wouldn't even care about it. Care about yourself. Care about what you feel. Tell me what you feel instead of why men do this. I know you guys are incessantly trying to figure out why men do things, but if you notice, my conversations actually talk about a woman's feelings more so. Hey, I want to give RM Bells big hugs for the $2 super sticker. Thank you so much. Laura Long says, if a man cannot be understanding or realize that that you are human and maybe he has some of the same problems. Exactly. And by the way, women do this habitually as men. Sammy says, why men between 50 and 60 are not into marriage? Okay, great question. So roughly about 75% of that demographic of single men are divorced and or widowers. And as I said in this broadcast, they're gun shy. They've been hurt in the past and they're fearful of making a mistake. In other words, committing to someone where it doesn't go the distance. We have a huge population of men and women who are radically gun shy. This is not, it's a very valid thing to be gun shy. Gun shy means you're afraid, You're afraid. By the way, after my divorce, the last thing I wanted to do was get remarried. It took me a good 10 to 12 years after my divorce to even be in a space where I wanted to even consider marriage again, that I wanted to consider a significant relationship. So why is that? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of getting hurt. By the way, we have so many single people, men and women alike. Women feel that same thing. They're fearful of getting hurt. By the way, if this is if this is sinking in, if this is resonating with you, please hit that like button right now. I'd appreciate some love. As I said, I'm going to wrap up this video because we have a kind of a bashful group today. So if you found value in what I said, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. If you did find value in this video, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to get all the books I recommend, all listed below. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrog of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give it or them a hug of love because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we can all use more love in our lives. I want to thank RM Bells for donating tonight. Sammy, Patricia, Sabrina, Lisa, Ella, Jerry, Eva, thank you so much. Wishing you all a wonderful day. Be well. Thanks. Bye now.